Hello and very warm welcome to Dr. Ahmed YouTube channel. As I already say in my different videos, this recording is being done for the benefit of students mostly, and however, if some researchers are interested, they can also get benefit out of that. Right now, I'm going to talk about multi-perspectivity in the novel Redbirds by Hanif Muhammad. This is a new topic that needs to be talked about and debated in this novel. How multi-perspectivity or multi-perspectivity, as you want to pronounce it, can be used for the sake of research and for the sake of understanding of this novel. So today's topic, as is being suggested, is here. For example, if you look at that, it's multi-perspectivity in Hanif's Redbirds. Multi-perspectivity, the word comes from multi and then perspectivity, perspective. I mean, there are multiple perspectives inside the novel, and that is what we need to talk about today. And here, understanding this topic is very important. Multi-perspectivity in Hanif's Redbirds. We know very well that Hanif's novel Redbirds has established its own place in the world because of many different aspects in it. For example, it talks about post-feministic techniques, and then it talks about the representations of the third world women in comparison to the first world women. This novel also highlights the landscape, that is the desert, in comparison to the beautiful landscape of USA. And then this novel also goes to talk about the remains which are left most of the time inside the places where the US Army or the NATO Army comes, and ultimately they go out. It also talks about the initiation of the war with the bombing by the NATO jets, and after that, the dropping of the food supplies, the medicine supplies as well, and that is the type of life it goes to depict. But this novel should also be understood in the sense that it has got multi-perspectivity in it as well. Let us see how and in what way this multi-perspectivity comes in view. For example, if we just look at the style, that style goes to talk about the multi-narrator techniques, or in other words, it can be multi-narratives techniques as well. Let us understand, first of all, the difference between multi-narrator and multi-narratives. Multi-narrators, that means to say that as the writer proceeds to write something about his story, he may be introducing narrators, different narrators. I mean, he can himself become a narrator, and in the past time, it used to be the technique of introducing sometimes the first person, sometimes the second person, as Hamid has done in his novel Getting Filthy Rich in Rising Asia. And sometimes it is the you and then the third person perspective, most of the time used by the writers in the ancient times, in the Victorian ages. For example, most of the novels were written in the sense of the third person narrative, but later on the second person came, and ultimately in the novels which are mostly post-war novels or the post-colonial novels, that was the first person technique also used. But here we get neither the first person nor the second person, and neither it is the third person. It is the narrator which changes from place to place, from chapter to chapter. We have the chapters which are assigned to different narrators. So that is why when there are 5 to 6, 7 characters, and all these characters are having their different narrations and they are titled with different chapters, at that time it becomes multi-narrator. And same is the case with the term multi-narratives. I mean, when we have different narrators, they would be describing the story with their perspective, with their style, with their way. At that time, the narrative would definitely become multi-narrative. And so the stories within the stories would be established, and one will be able to understand how beautifully the writer has woven the web of stories and how he has connected these stories with each other. Well, most of the time, as it's written here, post-colonial novels introduced this type of style. Post-colonial novels did not have any one narrator. Mostly they were divided into 3 parts, mostly, as Chinua Achebe's novel Things Fall Apart is there. They are divided into 3 parts, and most of the time, or let's say sometime, the writers introduce 3 different narrators, or sometime it happens that the first part is with respect to the first narrator, and then it comes the second part, and the second part has different narrator, and the same first part narrator can return in the third part as well. So in this way, all parts would have their own style. So post-colonial novel introduced this type of style. Let's have some of the examples from the post-colonial novel. For example, first of all, it is Conrad's Heart of Darkness. We are well aware, and I think the people who have studied this novel, they may be remembering that three parts have three different narrators in that novel as well. So technique is not new. It has been followed in order to get different types of benefits the writer wants to have, or provide different types of perspectives. The technique has been used again and again. And similarly, we can also see there is another novel, Arundhati Roy's novel, The God of Small Things. It doesn't provide different types of narrators, but it provides the story told by the writer with respect to the different characters. So every part of the chapter, every part of the book may be having a very different character, and that may be the story may be told with perspective of these characters. And similarly, if we proceed further, we do have another very fascinating technique used by Sidhwa in her novel Ice Candy Man, and that technique was to bring a narrator, which is Lenny in that novel, and speak through Lenny in order to provide a very unique perspective of a child, the child who looks at the things which are happening around, and the novelist wants us to understand the things with respect to that child. So in that way, different types of techniques have been experimented in the post-colonial, post-war, and then post-modern novels as well. But this thing has been done by Muhammad Hanif in his novel Red Birds. It's a very unique type of thing. It's a very different thing. Let us see how does it provide to us something different from the other novels. For example, if we look at the novel, we will see that there are some important characters in the novel, like Momo is one character, Mutt is another character, Mother Dear, Ellie, Kate, these are some of the important characters, Father Dear, the Doctor, Lady Flower Body, all are these characters present inside the novel. Now these characters become themselves the narrators of the story. For example, large number of chapters are dedicated to Momo, which is the younger son of the Father Dear and Mother Dear, and he provides a teenager's perspective when he's growing up. His interests, for example, he's playing with Mutt, his having the Jeep, which is Cherokee Jeep, and his styles to become important in this world, and his ambitions all are told with respect to Momo, with respect to a teenager. Same is the case with Mutt. Mutt is a dog, and a very different name has been chosen by the writer for this dog. This dog, in half of the novel, remains on his forelegs, has a very good body, but he meets different accidents. For example, when Ellie's aeroplane falls in the desert area, and Mutt is accidentally present there, and his one leg is injured, and as a result, he becomes a lame dog. But his perspective remains the same. He looks at the things with the sense of a dog, and then he narrates those things with the sense of a dog. His loyalty with Mother Dear, his loyalty with Father Dear, and his loyalty with Momo, and ultimately with Ellie as well. So this is something very unique, that on the one hand is a teenager's perspective, on the other hand an animal's perspective is there, that animal which is known in this world to be a first friend of man and most vigilant person, most vigilant thing in this world, which would take care of the master, of the house of the master, and would be with the master all the time, showing his affection, showing his love, showing his all type of care for the master, and demanding very little in return. That is the type of Mutt, the dog, who also becomes the narrator in the story. Then is Mother Dear the narrator. It is very significant to see how does a mother looks at her home when it is without war, and when war comes, what happens to her home, and when her son disappears, what happens to her, what are her duties, and what are the ways with which she manages her home, even in the presence of lack of dollars or money, lack of salts, lack of other affectionate qualities from her husband. And that way, it provides a very unique perspective of what a mother look like at her son, at Mutt, at her husband, and ultimately she would miss her son Ellie, who has been handed over by the father to the Americans, as it is said. And she therefore becomes a part of the land. If we say that one's land is a motherland, this mother deer becomes really a mother for whose protection all the world of the house of these people seems to be moving. So that's a motherly perspective provided to us. Then comes Ali, which is a distortion of the name Ali, probably in order to lend the color. That name Ali, when went to the Americans, it became Ali, and this type of pronunciation may be existing in some part of the Muslim world as well. But then it is the perspective again provided not with a point of view of the local people, but with the point of view of an American who is a pilot, who is trained American pilot, who is trained in the society of America. He is brainwashed to become a person who would definitely hold his own independent, carefree type of attitude. No, he comes to bomb the areas which he doesn't know at all. He's got no enmity with them. And he feels very casual about that. But when he falls down, his plane is destroyed and he falls down. At that time, the whole training, the whole machinery, the whole power of USA fails to protect him. It is the very mutt, it is very Momo, it is very mother deer who comes forward and protects him. And so in that way, the story or that of Ali's perspective is shown in the sense just with the similar type of Soyinka's poem, Soldier and the Civilian. There also the civilian protected the soldier, same as the case over here, that Ali is protected by the very people on whom he had come to drop his bombs. Then comes Kate, the very important, very romantic type of character, and very important as well because she provides the perspective of the American women. How do they come and appear? How do they behave with the males, and how do they take care of their family, of their job, and of their own personality? All these aspects are revealed to us, and we are capable of contrasting the word of Kate with the word of Mother Deer. So in this way, you can find all characters providing their narration, and in that way coming forward to us. In that way, not only this, we have Lady Flower Body also. She too talks and speaks in the same way as a professional young woman should speak. Now, when we look at that Lady Flower Body's narrations, we don't see that she is 100% machine, as most of the time our people would like to believe about the Western people. No, she's got the heart, and she does fall in love with Momo as well. She does fall in love with the pilot Ellie as well, and she's ready to show her emotional side as well. But then she's more interested in her work also. This is also very much important. Same as the case with the doctor, same as the case with the father. All these people provide us a very unique and different types of perspectives. If we proceed further, what is the benefit of these perspectives? The benefit is telling the stories. For example, we have 7 characters, 7 stories would come before us. And the beauty of these stories is that we are able to see that the stories are part by part told to us. It's not just one person should come forward and tell the story and later on go away. It is not the case at all. The stories are divided into sub stories. In that way, the interest of the novel remains there, and we are capable of finding what is the perspective, the changing perspective of the narrator with the changing situation when his part of the story is told to us. So these characters are telling their stories, and not only they are telling their stories, they are providing us their perspective, whatever their perspective is. Now, this perspective should be discussed in 2 ways. One, the character, the way the character has been developed in the novel. The character would speak and narrate the story, and we would get characters' individual, private, personal perspective. How does it the character feels about the particular situation? In that way, the individual perspective, maybe it is the different multi versions of the writer's own perspective, but then describing it through different characters, that makes it even more interesting. And so these characters provide their individual perspectives, and these individual perspectives, what do they do with us? They provide the reader very unique and different types of perspective. And so the reader is becoming himself a person who would like to look at the story with the similar perspective. For example, when we read the chapter narrated by Mutt, we feel like looking at the incident and the story in the same way as Mutt is looking. Same is the case with Momo, that if we are, even if we are adult person, we look at the story, the event of the story with the eye of a teenager. And when we read the story or the part of the story narrated by Mother Dear or Lady Flower Buddy, at that time we feel how, if the reader is a woman, if the reader would like to feel like a woman, how the type of story will be understood by him. So in this way, all these narratives are not only writers' different versions of the story, but these are also individual characters' versions of the stories, their own stories, and then they make us become so, make us feel so. And so in that way, the perspectives of the story change. Perspective of the stories shift their places from one character to the other, and as a result we have got multi-perspectivity in the novel, and that is the very beauty of the story. Now this incident of the falling of the ship and then bringing the things before the people, how it is happening, these are the things which is very short incident, right? But these perspectives, these narratives make the story a complete, a total story. Perhaps if these narrators were not there, if these perspectives were not there, we won't be able to get full picture of the story. You can say that in the jigsaw puzzle of the novel, these different narrators are the parts. Unless these are fixed together in a very expert and complex way, and very dexterous way, these jigsaw puzzles are joined together in order to have a whole understanding of the story. Now, in another way, let us see that post-colonial novels most of the time are multi, layered novels. We have stories within the stories, and the stories are told to us not in a linear fashion as it used to be in the Victorian and post-Victorian novels. The post-colonial novel provides us non-linearity. I mean, the stories cannot be the type of starting from A and moving towards Z. They cannot be like that. Stories have, within the stories, they have some part of the story in the beginning, some part of the story in the middle, some part of the story in the end. For example, Arundhati Roy's novel begins the place where the deaths are taking place, but the life of these characters is told later on. And some of the characters are whose life is told first of all, but their deaths are told in that. So that is the type of non-linearity provided to us people in post-colonial novel. But in the post-9/11 novel, or one can say 21st century novel, postmodernist techniques have entered more into the novels and narrators. So that is why we have this unique type of style of the introduction of the multi-layers, multi-narrators, and multi-narratives, or the multi-perspectives of the writer, which are coming towards us. Now, this thing very much resembles to the drama, because drama is the very genre of literature where the dialogue as well as the action is taken not just by one character but by number of characters, not only the major protagonists, the heroes, but also the minor characters. Every character plays a role in that, and so every character speaks his own perspective. This novel, though, doesn't have that much number of characters as a drama, possibly Shakespearean drama, for example, can have. But then 7 to 9 characters also provide a different perspective. They come on the stage and speak in the same way. So the effect of the drama can also be had, can also be understood when we read this story, this novel. So in that way, effect of the drama is created. Now, if my students and my listeners are very much interested to explore more in the novels which are using multi-narratives, I propose to them that Susan Bark has created a list of 10 very famous, very important novels of the 20th as well as 21st century who have used multiple narratives. If the students can Google justice 10 novels with multiple narratives by Susan Bark, they will be able to reach that list very easily. It's available online, it's free, and one can have a good reading out of that. So that is the way how the novel Redbirds by Hanif should be read in order to enjoy a unique use of the multi-narrators technique, lending us multi-narratives and giving us multi-perspectives, which is called as the multi-perspectivity in this novel, in the narration. Okay, thank you very much for watching and hope to see you in some next video. Till that time, seeing you, goodbye. See you next time in some next video.